Welcome everyone to the Industry Icon Unplugged podcast. We're here with Caleb Wall with Wall to Wall Sports. Super hyped to have you here, man. Thanks for being on the podcast, man.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Excited to be here as well. Excited to talk about what we do, why we're different, and just tell our story.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm really hyped because the first time we talked and we met, he told me about what you do. I was like, oh my gosh, like where were you when I told about ACLs?
Yeah.
So with that being said, can you tell us what do you do and what makes you unique? Because to me, I feel like it's very unique with what you do.
Yeah, so I'll try to condense this a little bit, but in the physical therapy world, we've transitioned to a doctorate degree now. So we come out as doctors of physical therapy, and now we have 10 different specializations after that that you can or cannot pursue. And so when I came out of school in 2015, I pursued board certification in sports. So I did a sports residency, kind of specialized in that area, then moved to Arizona and kind of jumped into a traditional outpatient clinic that I think most people probably have that vision in their mind of what physical therapy is. It's probably the outpatient clinic. And was a little bit shocked at what I was confronted with as far as the volume of patients, the level of care or lack thereof. And so quickly started to look for different avenues or outlets that I could actually utilize the skills that I had learned and to try to pursue and provide the care that I felt like patients deserved. And finally found a clinic that had a model that I agreed with and was offered a management position at that clinic. And so I was there for a number of years and kind of made it through COVID. Interesting situation. And then things started to change, and I started to recognize that business was looking to be sold or acquired, which did happen. And at that point, I said, "Hey, how can I do something a little bit differently? How can we offer physical therapy skill set and services, but truly with one-to-one care?" Not being treated by an assistant or a tech or alongside three or four other patients at once, still earn a living and grow a business. So you have to be paid for your service. And my wife is a PT as well, and so we talked a lot about it, and we tried to figure out, well, what kind of model is there that we can have the best of both worlds,
Yeah.
right? And so we elected a mobile concierge orthopedic service, and it's really more than physical therapy. We offer imaging, we offer wellness packages. It's really a medical grade service that comes to your home. And it's not home health. There's no qualifications like home health has, there's no restrictions that home health has. It's truly bringing the outpatient clinic to your home, and you are met with an individual doctor of physical therapy who is your physical therapist. They get to know you and your body, and really become a lifelong kind of partner in your health journey.
Hmm. Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. So why did you decide to do that? To make that switch.
That's a good question. And I'll try to keep this like politically correct. So I believe this is my opinion, but I think a lot of people would agree with this opinion. The current outpatient PT model is broken, and not just physical therapy. I think that goes beyond physical therapy. Our medical field has some big hurdles in front of it right now. For example, this kind of gets into the details of things in the PT world, but the most common CPT code that we bill to insurance is therapeutic exercise 97110. In 2012, the average reimbursement for that bill was close to $30 for that unit. Today, that's closer to $28.50. So it's over 10 years ago, and we've lost $1.50 reimbursement every time we bill that code.
Wow.
And we've gone from a master's degree to a doctorate. We have direct access, meaning somebody can come off the street to see us. We have to catch red flags if there's something that seems more insidious than orthopedic injury, we have to refer out and refer out correctly.
Wow.
So our responsibilities have gone up, our education has gone up, we have a larger role in the healthcare system, but the reimbursement has gone down.
Wow.
So from a
Crazy.
business ownership perspective, um,
Hmm.
how do they thrive or survive? Well, it's to hire cheaper help, so there's more assistants and techs being utilized in the delivery of care. And don't get me wrong, those people are wonderful, um, but it's not always an actual physical therapist delivering the care, even though you, as a patient, may feel or believe that you're going to physical therapy, you're going to see a PT. You typically will see that PT initially. The PT sets the plan of care, and then that care plan is carried out um, extensively by the PT assistant or the tech. On top of that, there's usually 2, 3, or 4 patients per hour that PT is responsible for writing the note and signing off on that care plan. And so, really, what happens is the quality of care goes down, and who suffers?
Yeah.
You, the patient, and honestly, the clinician. There's a huge burnout in outpatient physical therapy. PTs are leaving left and right. Um, and it all stems back to a large number of volume-based clinic, max billing everything that they can to keep the doors open and survive. And it only hurts the patient and the PTs.
Wow. That's super insightful, man.
Yeah.
Like,
So really, that was the problem we saw, and trying to find the solution was, well, we can't contract with insurance. And some people will say, well, that eliminates a large number of people from getting your service. But it really doesn't. There are ways that we can do things to get patients better quicker, above national average. And there are different forms that we can submit to your insurance and do those types of things to get some reimbursement back directly to the patient. And it becomes more affordable than what you think to um, actually make progress in whatever healthcare situation you're in.
yeah, no, man, that's really cool. I think, can you talk about can you give me an example maybe of like ways that it becomes a little bit more accessible to, I mean, like the ways that you make it more accessible
Yeah,
to people?
yeah. So currently, if you look at national averages, you're going to find different numbers, but it's between 6 or 8 visits of physical therapy per case, so
Yeah.
per diagnosis. There's huge variation in that, like an ACL reconstruction or two. You can expect 9 months of physical therapy with that if things go well, versus vertigo. A lot of times we can see significant improvements in 1 or 2 visits.
Wow.
But if you're looking at what our practice is doing, we're sitting at 10 to 15% under the national average. We're actually getting people better faster,
Wow.
which to me, that's a huge positive.
Yeah.
But if you look at the other business model that we were just referring to, that's actually a negative, right? They want to see extended treatment plans that capture more visits per client. So it becomes an ethical dilemma, right? Because your business model, you want to see those number of visits high, um, but we're in this to make improvements, right, and get people back to their goals in their life and their kids, their wife, whatever, their work, whatever it is.
Yeah.
We want to get them back to doing that as quickly as possible, and we're able to do that with our models. That's number one. You're going to see us for less number of visits than what you would in a traditional clinic.
That's
So
awesome.
the second part of that is actual time. So driving to a clinic, sitting in a waiting room, filling out paperwork, spending 5 or 10 minutes with the PT. None of that happens with us. You get 90 minutes one-on-one with the PT initially in your home or your office or wherever you want to be treated. If you can extend your lunch from 60 minutes to 90 minutes, I'll come to your office. We bring all of the equipment,
Wow.
and we provide a really, really thorough 90-minute evaluation. So you're saving time, number two. Number three, if you have commercial insurance, so most insurance outside of Medicare, there's a high likelihood that you have out of network physical therapy coverage. We're licensed physical therapists. We just don't contract with insurance. That puts us in that out of network category. So once we collect payment from you, we can provide you with what is termed a super bill. It's basically a detailed paid invoice, and we send that to the client. The client sends that to their insurance, Their insurance will reimburse the client directly for those services. So
Wow.
it's not all coming out of your pocket necessarily.
Yeah.
Now, there's no guarantees with that. It is the client's responsibility to look into their insurance policy, um, but a large number of those policies have out of network coverage.
That's awesome, man. That's really cool. I think it's that's crazy. You said you're 10 to 15% under
Yeah.
average. Yeah, man. That's wild. I'm trying to think back of the time. Oh, go ahead. Will you say something?
No.
Okay. I was trying to think back of the time when I was in PT and I ended up with my ACL. I didn't bend it. Like I didn't walk on it. No one, the doctor didn't tell me I could do that,
Yeah.
and I had no idea. So, I was, yeah, I talked about the thing, but I went to Turkey, so I was on the flight. I just left it straight the entire time, and then when we went anywhere, I was just on crutches. So when I got back, and then when I started going to PT, I couldn't get full range of motion.
Right.
So then I had to get a manipulation, and man, that that process was so brutal. Like all right, I don't want you getting manipulation. It's like really bad. So they were just like cranking me,
Yeah.
man.
It becomes very painful when it starts to scar down like that. And then there's the kind of the mental side of that. You've just been through a large injury, then a large surgery. You think you've made it through. In reality, your journey had just started. And then you're back in the operating room. They're putting you back under anesthesia, manipulating you. Then they probably sent you to PT like every day for a week or two. And the therapist, our job at that point is to make sure that that knee does not stiffen back up. So it becomes painful. Uh, and, just hearing a little bit of your story, I'm sure there's more
No,
details
for
to it,
sure.
but it comes back to an education piece that was
Mm-hmm.
missing, right? You
Yeah.
didn't know for whatever reason you didn't know,
Yeah.
right? But that happens a lot,
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately. And so, what we're trying to do is make sure that we have the time to address those details and not miss those things. So, if a provider has 10 minutes and there's three other patients on tables around them during that time, but they have 10 minutes dedicated to you, the chances are something's going to be missed. If we're 90 minutes in your home one on one listening, the likelihood is much less that you're going to miss the idea of, hey, you can bend your knee. We want you to bend your knee and we want you to walk on your knee.
Absolutely.
Like that's like a
Yeah.
pretty big, goal number one,
For
right?
sure. Absolutely.
And so, and that doesn't mean necessarily that you wouldn't have still ended up having a manipulation, but the fact that the education piece was missing is unfortunate, and it happens all over the place.
Yeah, that's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, like, so, I mean, the PT, like, obviously, they're really great. They're really awesome. But, yeah, man, I'm actually curious. Just some maybe like side note questions,
We're gonna talk some
but
ACL
yeah,
here. I
well, no,
love
I'm
it.
curious about like how it works. Is like the system works at physical therapy offices, right? So they always ask me afterwards, like, do you want ice or heat? Do you get charged like do they charge extra for the insurance or something, or is it like
No, most insurances won't
oh
pay for
okay?
that.
So what are like? Because sometimes I felt bad because sometimes it was like, can I take it? Is it okay? Because sometimes I felt
Yeah,
like
it's
this weird.
okay.
Oh
Yeah,
okay,
for the
okay,
most part, it's okay.
okay.
There's timed codes and there's untimed codes. And so yeah, there's different types of all sorts of different codes and types of billing and group billing and things like
Okay.
that. Every insurance is a little bit different. Like in the clinic, if you're contracted with Medicare, you can only reimburse for time spent one on one. But there's the clinics get around that all sorts of different ways. And then there's different billing rules for a PTA and a tech versus the PT. So probably outside the scope of this talk, but I'm
Gotcha.
happy to come back and have
For
another
sure.
talk about that. I am definitely not an expert. There are people much more educated in that than I am.
Yeah.
Um, I'm kind of talking from a clinic manager point of
Mm,
view and a clinician point
yeah.
of view, what we see. But
Yeah.
there is a lot going on the back end of that as well.
For
And a
sure.
lot of these clinics hire billing companies, right?
So we
So
send
we
all of
send
our
all of our
information,
information, and then
they put
they
it
put it
together
together the way that it needs to be put together and
and
sent off to the insurance payers.
Yeah. Well, okay, so when you told me about how the P like the actual there like the PT doesn't actually like he only gets it 15 minutes or something like that. It blew my mind because I was like, oh, that's why I only saw him. Like, and
Yeah.
I was a tech doing all my exercises the entire time that
Yeah,
I
and
was
every
there.
treatment was pretty similar, that time frame that you saw the PT, right? So it's a, if we see you, if we spend, again, we went away from this because of these kind of ethical issues, but um, codes are billed in 15-minute increments. But if you spend 8 minutes, you're over halfway there. You can bill it. So everybody basically spends 8 minutes doing manual, 8 minutes doing therapeutic exercise, 8 minutes doing this, 8 minutes doing that.
Oh
It's a
my
billing, right?
gosh.
It
Yeah.
all comes back to
But
being paid.
it's just so crazy to think about. Now I see everything. When he told me, I was like, oh
Yeah,
my gosh. Well, I mean, they did a good job with like making me feel like I was cared for, but
absolutely.
but at the same time, it was just
And I
like,
think all like therapists are very
yeah,
educated, and I think everybody's trying to do the best that they possibly can. I think the model is just
yeah,
broken.
absolutely,
It's just um, there's no reason insurance reimbursements should have gone down since
yeah,
2012. And then they'll say, well, the outcomes are getting worse. Well, yeah, they are, right? But it's chicken or the egg, right? I mean,
yeah,
in my opinion, the outcomes are being driven by insurance reimbursements going down and the volume of patients being seen secondarily going up.
yeah,
And so it's this vicious cycle that we're in. And, um, you know, I know healthcare in general, but PT specifically is becoming more uh, like mom and pop. And what I mean by that is you can, like retail, like healthcare is becoming more retail.
mm,
And meaning you can go to the local strip mall and find all sorts of wellness services and medical services. You don't always have to go to a big hospital system and be pulled into that system and then referred to your providers. You can kind of shop and go where you want to go, and there's a ton of cash pay options out there now. And I believe that is due to this cycle that we were just referring to.
yeah,
People say, "Well, I don't want to have my therapist see 4 patients in an hour, but I have to keep my business open, so I'm going to offer cash pay options, the pneumatic compression boots, the cold plunging, the red light laser therapy, all of those things." And some of those things are wonderful. We do a lot of those things, but some of them lack evidence as well, and so they're trendy,
mm,
and people jump on board. In my opinion, as long as they're not doing any harm, then that's fine.
yeah,
Um, but that's what we're getting because of what's happening on the back end.
yeah. Man, okay, so I just want to ask you one more question, and then we'll move on to some other things. But for a patient who is like, say they're on the fence and they're like, they didn't know you existed, right? Like they have no idea, but hopefully now they will. But say that someone's watching this and they're currently a patient. Is there anything that a patient can do to like advocate for themselves in these scenarios within the system that is broken?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, our service is not for everybody. I tell people all the time, you may be a good fit in an outpatient clinic
Mm,
that takes your insurance. You don't have copay, whatever it is. There are certain outpatient clinics here in the valley and all over the country that only take two an hour or
mhm.
two in a 45-minute block. And those are the questions I would ask. Well, how many patients per PT um, are coming in per hour? And or another way to ask that question from a patient to a front office staff member is say, okay, if I want to come in to see Caleb, I know he has an assistant and a tech working for him, but how many patients is Caleb responsible for in an hour?
Mm,
The lower the number, the better.
gotcha.
That's a big one for me. And then I would say if you're not seeing some consistency in provider, meaning you have two, maybe three providers that know you really well and you see only them, that's a problem. Because no matter how well the providers are communicating back and forth, if you're seeing four, five, six different people, you're spending half your time in the clinic catching up that person to where you were previously versus if you're just seeing a couple um, that can actually work against you, you know what I mean?
Gotcha.
So I think having some consistency with your provider and knowing that the provider is going to be available time-wise for you.
Okay, cool, man. No, that's huge. That's awesome. So they can ask the front desk the question of um, how many patients a PT seeing
Yeah.
in an hour block or 45-minute block, you said?
Yeah, I
Okay.
mean, yeah, I would just ask the general question
Okay,
and see what you
cool.
get back. But yeah, I mean, that's your right as a consumer to know that. And then you can ask do you offer cash pay services, and is that service one-on-one, and what is that rate? So a lot of these clinics will contract with insurance, but then they'll offer some other cash pay services on top of that, and so that could be valuable too.
Gotcha. So then if someone does go and ask that and their volume is like ridiculous, then it's just more of like, okay, maybe find somewhere else kind of thing.
In my opinion,
Yeah.
yes.
Go to
You know,
Gallup.
yeah. I mean, and it's not just me.
Yeah.
There's clinicians all over the valley here in Phoenix that are operating similar practices, whether they have a brick and mortar and they're operating outside of the insurance contracts, or a little less common is the mobile side of it, but there are other mobile therapists doing this as well. There's options. There's definitely options, and I think in 5 or 10 years from now, it's gonna be everywhere.
Yeah. Crazy, man. That's cool. I feel like you're a real uh, uh, innovator, early adopter guy, and it's cool what you're doing and helping uh, people like me, man.
Well, I think it's just it comes twofold. Is that we saw a problem, we were in the middle of it, and so we felt it from a personal, selfish side. I was burnt out. I was in practice for 6 years and I was toast. I was completely burnt out. I had lost passion. I was waking up less enthusiastic than I should to go do my job that I had been in school for 9 years for.
Wow.
And I'd been in practice for 6 years, right? I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And my wife, at one point, there's a very specific conversation I had with my wife. Oh, she was probably so sick of hearing me every night. Looking back, we had just had our first baby,
Oh,
so
big.
yeah, Cade was about 6 months old.
Sweet.
And I came home and said, yeah, I'm gonna quit my job and I'm gonna start my own practice. Okay.
At
She
6
was
months.
supportive, yeah.
Yeah.
My wife was very supportive. But there was probably an eye roll or two in the background there, but we got there eventually. But there was a specific conversation that we had in the kitchen one evening, and I looked at her and said, I feel like I'm becoming a worse PT every day I go to work.
Hmm.
And that like stuck with me. I don't know if it stuck with her. She probably doesn't remember the conversation. But it stuck with me and I thought, what am I doing? I mean, I'm a very kind of self-driven, motivated person. I want to do well in everything that I'm doing. I want to be successful, however you judge success. And for that to come out of my mouth, it really stuck with me. And I was like, okay, I need to do something, even if it's not drastic. I need to make active steps to get myself into a position where number one, I'm enthusiastic, I'm improving, I'm becoming. I was talking to you before the podcast started. I've got some mentorship right after this to continue learning about the imaging that we're doing.
That's awesome.
And that's what I wake up and I'm enthusiastic about that growth, where before that just wasn't happening. So
Dang, man. The Yeah, thanks for sharing that story. I think that's really cool that that's something you really remember. I'm really curious, even within that, um, to be able to be in school for 9 years and then work for six and then now start your own business, right? Like that's a lot of that's just there has to be a lot of love for something, right? What like what got you started into it?
yeah, so I do think my dad always told me, find something you're passionate about. To be honest, work is sort of work sometimes, right? I don't care how passionate you are. Like Alex, you probably have days where you're like, oh man, I just don't feel like doing this today. I think any listener out there, if you don't relate to that, I don't know. I wish I could have whatever you have, but
Appreciate it.
they're like work is work. And my dad always said, that's going to be the case, but find something you're passionate about. But then the reality of that is you have to earn income and provide for your family and yourself as well. And everybody's goals on that side of things are variable, and that's that's up to you, right? That's personal. Um, for me, I was perfectly healthy kid playing all the ball sports, and then I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes when I was 12.
Wow.
So I was in seventh grade. It was kind of a curveball, which my parents were more upset than I was. I was like, hey, no big deal. I'll just take the insulin, check my sugar, and keep on keeping on. And that's what I did. Ended up playing college football and
Wow.
going that route.
Sick.
But I think that sparked something in me that made me think, well, like, why did I get this, right? And you kind of turn in and have that selfish viewpoint of like, why me? Um, I'm taking this insulin. I got to count carbohydrates. Everybody else is eating pizza and just hanging out, right?
Mhm.
So I think that got me intrigued by the human body and how it works. And then obviously, as I got a little bit older, started working out. I enjoyed working out and just seeing like physical change and those sorts of things. So, got to college. I was there to major in football. I had no idea what I wanted to study besides football, um, and other things. But that's outside the podcast.
For sure.
You guys can edit that part. So, anyways, majored in exercise physiology. Toward the end of that, I said, well, I really like more of the medical side of things, not just the exercise and the exercise phys. So I actually looked at medical school, chiropractic school, PA, physician assistant, and PT, and did a deep dive and called a lot of programs and learned about the careers and shadowed people and ultimately felt like PT was the best fit for me. There's a lot of different flexibility and directions that you can go with the PT world, but yeah, it took me a long time to actually understand where I wanted to go and the direction that I wanted to go. And then even in PT school, I excelled in the orthopedic curriculum, uh, but never thought I would go on to do the sports residency or specialize, and definitely didn't think I would ever be a business owner. Still, I wake up and pinch myself like, am I trying to run a business? Okay, right? Um, Sometimes things just work out the way they should.
Yeah. Wow. Dang, man. So type 1 at 12.
Yeah.
And then, um, so where'd you play college at?
Moorhead State University.
Okay,
It's
cool.
a one double A school in Eastern Kentucky.
Oh, nice,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
That's awesome. Um, so once you could, so, um, right now, your focus, right? Like, I know you do a lot of different things, and serve a lot of different patients,
Yeah.
but you're also, can you talk about maybe some of your clients that it seems to overlap with a lot of your passions of sports and yeah,
Yeah, so we do
athletics.
tend to market toward an active population, if you want to call them, athletes or active adults or whatever it may be. That's who we serve the best, I think. But we do see a wide variable population and different injuries. We definitely specialize in orthopedic care. We are broadening that. We've just hired a board certified neurological specialist, so the highest trained neurological PT that you can have.
Wow,
She's on board or will be on board next month with us, so
that's
excited
awesome.
about that and be able to kind
Congrats.
of open our doors, so to speak,
Yeah.
to a different population. But as far as myself and what we've focused on is the active adults, and that ranges from professional athletes to middle-aged folks who undergo total knees, ACL reconstructions, things like that. So we have a contract with a major league pitcher, so we travel all around the country with him,
Awesome.
kind of surrounding his starts and doing some cool different things at that level. And then we also see your mom or grandma who has had a total knee, and we do see patients immediately post operative. So we have the ability to manage patients right out of surgery and rehab them all the way back to hiking camelback or whatever
Wow,
it may be.
that's really awesome. So, um, I think like what I see it seems really. I mean, it's really awesome how much you've fought for what you really like believe in, and I'm curious like why. What do you think continues to motivate you to this day, right? So, I mean, I know you look back and you see like this progression, but starting a business is a whole other beast.
Yeah,
Um,
that just comes from my personality, honestly. That's a good question, but a loaded question. Here you're gonna. So I describe it as I'm extremely competitive. Other people would say driven, because competitive, I feel like, kind of has a bad connotation to it, right? Like people are like,
Sure.
oh, competitive. But I
Yeah.
feel like if you can hone that in and use it to your advantage, it can be a very powerful trait. Um, I want to succeed, and me